Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting Hiltz. He darts in.
Whoa! People actually subscribe.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one.
We welcome you into Drive Time. A new week of Drive Time as we bring you in on a Monday. No Orange games to react to other than the women's basketball team. They went down and took it to SMU, wire-to-wire victory. Good win for the women's team yesterday, but a rare off weekend of Syracuse football and Syracuse men's basketball. Classes wrapping up for the semester this week, and we will have plenty of basketball on the docket this week. Orange men's basketball back in action Thursday night. Then they play Saturday as well. Women's team in action at home on Wednesday against Colgate. 8-1 on the season now are the Orange women. So we bring you in on Drive Time. We also had tons of news in regards to Syracuse football. They weren't playing games, but boy, they went out and got a pretty darn good defensive coordinator, it seems like. Lots of defensive staff hires. Some news that has trickled out about a couple coaches, defensive line coaches that are heading to different schools. So the coaching carousel is churning for Syracuse football at the minute. And we're still reacting, of course, to some of the National Signing Day news that came out last week as well. Plenty to get to on the show today. 5 to 6 p.m. weeknights, Drive Time here with you. And we want to hear from you as well. The phone lines were ringing as soon as I hit the air here. So we'll have someone on the phone lines here shortly. And you could be right after them at 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN44. If you want to join in on the conversation this afternoon. Also, you can join in on the conversation in the QSportsTalk.com chat. That is our Twitch stream, our video platform of the show. Just type in QSportsTalk.com on your phone, on your laptop, on your desktop computer, however you want, iPad, you could do it as well. And we'll get you a video stream, no breaks on our Twitch stream. Also, you can find us on the YouTube page, Q Sports Talk on our YouTube. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, I don't know what you're doing, because you can get all our interviews once those are dropped, and you can see all our shows and watch all our shows and have no breaks and skip through the breaks if you're watching on demand after the fact as well. All our shows out there in podcast form too. So we begin today with our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive, where I want to talk about what I think is a tremendous hire from Fran Brown and Syracuse here at the defensive coordinator position coming out this weekend, that Vince Karras of Toledo is going to be the new defensive coordinator for Syracuse. And our Stephen Fonte of Orange Nation and News Channel 9 was reporting that Vince Karras denied offers and turned down offers from Nebraska to be the defensive coordinator with Matt Rule at Nebraska, and to be the next head coach at Toledo, because Jason Candle, also of the Mount Union coaching tree, which is where Vince Karras was a head coach at the Division III level, and a very darn good head coach at the Division III level at Mount Union, won 2 national championships at the D3 level, took them to the national championship game as a head coach. 5 of the 7 years that he was the head coach, they were in the national championship game, and they won 2 of them. So Jason Candle goes to UConn. There was some talk of maybe he would follow him to UConn, or Toledo would just make him their head coach, the defensive coordinator, Vince Karras, who is now coming to Syracuse next season. So The Orange must be paying him some pretty darn good money, and Fran Brown must be giving out a pretty good sales pitch. It sounds like Fran Brown targeted Vince Karras a while ago based on his comments. He had been talking to Vince Karras for about a week and a half. He said that in a statement and in a quote on why he wanted to hire him as the defensive coordinator. So they're aligned in their principles. We were wondering who the next defensive coordinator would be, whether they would have ties to Fran Brown, and we got our answer. And Toledo has been one of the better defenses in the country in recent years. 6 seasons there at the MAC level as the Toledo defensive coordinator for Vince Karras. And last year, or this year, however you want to look at it, they were one of the best defenses in the nation. You look at pretty much any defensive statistic, they rank top 10 in the country in terms of defensive stats at Toledo, with Vince Karras running the 4-2-5 hybrid scheme that he is now planning on bringing to Syracuse. So that's the information on him. If you have thoughts on the new hire, feel free to call in at 315-437-7644 as we get into our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. Let's go to the phone lines for the first time today, and kicking us off again is Nick in Las Vegas. Hey, Nick.
Tim, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. Pretty awesome defensive coordinator hire. I think we're all in agreement on this. This is a home run hire.
His track record's okay.
Right. we can only go off the track record, which apparently didn't satisfy Paulie, for anyone who missed the earlier show.
Listen, not only did he do tremendous things at Toledo, but Mount Union is a factory in Division III, right? And not only as a head coach, but he was the D coordinator under his father. He was a player there. He's a proven winner. And to me, that's the biggest part of the whole hire, is he knows how to win. He's going to bring that winning mentality to Syracuse, which I think is much needed.
Yeah, I like that he's a former head coach because he's been in that type of situation and he can help Fran Brown. I think they were smart to look for someone that has some head coaching experience at the defensive coordinator position. It is Division III, but you're spot on. Mountain Union is a factory, and you talk about a coaching tree. His dad, Larry Karras, has worked with a lot of great coaches. Nick Sirianni got his start at Mountain Union, and Matt Campbell, who is now at Penn State after being at Iowa State for the last 10 seasons, got his start at Mountain Union. And the list kind of goes on. And Jason Kendall's another example who just is going from Toledo to UConn. So I think this is a great pickup. I think he's got great pedigree. And the fact that he turned down Nebraska to come to Syracuse says a lot about how serious Syracuse is about investing in football right now.
A couple of those things just to kind of touch on quickly. I know I don't take too much of your time, but the whole Nick Williams to Florida State today, everybody was worried about his recruiting. I personally don't see that as too big of a loss because the majority of the recruits he got from Florida came from Fran and Tommy Caparelli. Nick was involved as a position coach, but he wasn't the lead recruiter on 90% of those kids. Right? The pipeline got opened from Tommy Caparelli, and Fran kind of went in and closed the doors. So the whole recruiting nuance behind it isn't as vital as most people are thinking. And I don't know if you saw, but Football Scoop just put out another report about an hour ago that E-Rob to LSU is not done.
Wow. I did not see that. That's interesting. I would assume that... what else did they say? Go ahead.
They said there's 5 other suitors involved, which is telling me if he's not signed with LSU, is he still contractually with Syracuse? Is there a chance they keep him as the D-line coach still? Because nothing is finalized yet. So I don't know where that limbo is, but it's not a done deal.
All right, that's interesting. I'll look that up here, Nick, because I was assuming that was a done deal. That was all the reporting this weekend. We know Elijah Robinson was down there, and I don't think you called in on Friday, Nick, but we got a couple different calls on why Elijah Robinson was going down to Baton Rouge. I don't know if you listened to the show Friday. There were some interesting takes on that.
Funny fact, I was listening to a show on a plane on the way to Boise, so I went to the Mountain West Championship game Friday night.
Oh, nice.
So I was listening to the show, and I commented on Twitch from the plane, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't keep my streak alive today Sorry, Tim, but I'll call Monday. So
Well, it's a new week. You can start fresh. We appreciate you leading off the show. That's Nick in Las Vegas. And we got a Boise State mention from someone not named Scooter. I didn't think that was possible here on the ESPN Syracuse airwaves. So looking up this article, Football Scoop, an update on the pursuit of Elijah Robinson. And we assumed that he was going to LSU to join that staff with Lane Kiffin and be their new defensive line coach. Looks like, so Nick was saying there's other suitors. Multiple programs reached out to Robinson, and there's no real update on the situation here, just basically saying it's not a done deal as of right now. I would be interested to see where he ends up if it's not Florida State, or sorry, LSU. I was thinking Nick Williams. And on the note of Nick Williams, for anyone that missed that this morning, edge coach Nick Williams, who was at Colorado before Syracuse, worked with Fran Brown at Georgia, has been to a lot of great schools. And keep in mind, when Syracuse hired Nick Williams, that was considered a terrific hire. And I understand what Nick is getting at, where a lot of you are sort of viewing the product on the field, and we go back to that word product. The defensive product has not been good, of course, in either of the first two seasons under Fran Brown. And they have not gotten a pass rush to the degree that you would want. And they haven't been great at tackling. And we can go on and on down the list. But Florida State is ecstatic to get Nick Williams today, I'm sure. You go look at how Florida State is reacting to the news, and they're like, this is perfect. This is the guy we want. He's from this area. He's a great recruiter. He fits the MO of what our program wants. It's really easy to take coaching news and consume it in a positive light if you want. And I think it's also easy when the coach leaves for our reaction to be, oh, who cares? We didn't even need him. That's not that big of a loss. I think we do that too much, where we hype up the incoming guy, but we also try and rationalize or point to the negatives of the guy who leaves. And in this example, Nick Williams and Elijah Robinson, those are two big losses. That being said, Vince Karras is a great hire, and the offensive line coach of Juan Castillo is a great hire. And those were the two most important hires of this entire offseason in my mind. Offensive line coach and defensive coordinator, with defensive coordinator leading the way. And I don't really think it makes a ton of sense for Elijah Robinson to come back. I think it makes sense for Elijah Robinson to move on, and I hope that it's kind of a fresh start for him. And I can understand why Nick Williams is moving on, because he's from the Georgia area and he's from about 50 minutes away from Tallahassee. So that's a convenient opening for him. Granted, Florida State, that could be the last year of Mike Norvell. He is very much on the hot seat. Whereas when you look at LSU and the timeline there, Lane Kiffin is just starting a new contract, and you can kind of understand why Elijah Robinson would want to go there, because there's a lot of buzz around LSU, and it's Lane Kiffin, and it's the SEC. I think we did learn, based on the defensive coordinator hiring, which was the biggest hire of the offseason, and Fran seems to have hit a home run in that hire. We did learn that Syracuse has allocated a fair amount of resources, clearly, to get him, because you don't turn down the Toledo head coaching job or the Nebraska defensive coordinator position. And keep in mind the timeline of Nebraska. Matt Rule just got an extension. Matt Rule, while they did fizzle a little bit towards the end of this season, Matt Rule has that trending up. Syracuse was trending up after year one under Fran Brown. It's been kind of a mixed bag through two seasons when you throw in a 3-9 second season. So if you're Vince Karras and you're weighing your options, I'm not saying money was the only factor, obviously, but you weigh money, you weigh location, you weigh the coaching timeline, what the program is doing. Is it trending up? Is it trending down? You weigh, does my scheme work in the ACC, the 4-2-5 scheme? Is that going to be a good fit? Would it be a better fit at Nebraska? Would it be a better fit at UConn? I'm sure he thinks his scheme is going to work everywhere. And we can get into his style as a defensive coordinator after we hit this timeout, because digging in on that today, a couple of things really stood out to me about this type of defense he plays. And it is a 4-2-5, which is what the Orange have been using under Elijah Robinson, but it's a different type of 4-2-5. And when you really dive into the scheme and what he's been doing at Toledo, he's been turning heads around college football for some forward-thinking type of stuff on the defensive side of the ball. And the funny wrinkle to this is right now, Syracuse has Toledo on their schedule next year. Now, it seems like that game is going to be the game that is removed from the schedule so that the Orange can have space to add the additional conference game, which will be a road game. It'll be an ACC road game that's set to come out in maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, it seems like. We'll know that opponent, and that will get from 8 conference games to 9, which means the Orange do have to remove one non-conference opponent that is currently on their schedule next year, and it sounds like it is going to be Toledo. Would have been funny if it was Vince Karras against his former team, Toledo, next year, but it looks like that game is going to be removed off the schedule for next season at least. Plenty to get into as far as the new defensive coordinator and some more of this coaching news. We'll continue to track the Elijah Robinson situation. We'll talk some Orange women's basketball over the course of the show as well after they got the big victory down in Dallas over SMU. They are now 8-1 on the season. We can talk some Orange men's basketball too and get to more of your phone calls and your comments in the Q Sports Talk chat. 315-437-7644. Always the phone number to call here on Drive Time as we wrap up our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. We're back after this on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com. Track record. That was wild from Paulie. Yeah, it's a home run hire. Now, we thought Elijah Robinson was a home run hire. I understand what Paulie's saying, like home run hires have failed. And we probably would have gotten on here and been positive about any defensive coordinator hire, like I was kind of getting at. But this is just better than I would have guessed. I mean, they beat out Nebraska to get him. He's someone that another ACC school wanted. I mean, there's a lot of reason to like this particular hire. Maybe that's one thing Fran is realizing. I don't know if Wildhack would have forced him, but maybe he is realizing, you know, we have a lot of good recruiters. We brought in talent, but we need some coaches that are veterans that can develop that talent. I think you're kind of jumping to conclusions there, Philly, on inserting what Wildhack said. Not sure, but I think you're right about how the staff was viewed and now what we're seeing. Yeah, they really haven't had, I mean, first year they had some talent with Diggs, but their defensive line, I think the biggest issue is they just didn't show much growth, the guys that came back last year. Came back for this year, I guess. I don't know, San Diego Cuse. I think that's kind of hindsight bias. I mean, when they got Elijah Robinson, it was like, wow, Texas A&M's interim head coach that, you know, Fran got on in his press conference and was like, we got one of the best DCs in the country, which, of course, he's going to say that about his buddy. I hear you. But he was also like, he's going to be a head coach in 2 years. He's not going to be here long. And everyone wanted him, and we got him. I mean, I'm sure if you went back through, like, the message boards and Twitter the day that came out, people were like, holy crap, Fran means business. This is an unbelievable hire. You've seen it happen with the Wildhack or with another industry Sorry, I don't know if I read every comment you made. I mean, who knows if A&M wanted to make him DC. I guess Alco was coming in, and Alco's a defensive guy. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. You were making a lot of comments like it was like, that's definitely what's happening. I mean, it could be. Maybe I'm being unfair to assume you were like 100% confident in it. Yeah, but LSU wants him. I mean, I think we're changing the narrative a little bit on Elijah Robinson. He's a very good defensive line coach if LSU is coming and he has other suitors. I mean, I don't really know how much better he can do as a defensive line coach in college than LSU, you know?
ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSports.com.
Welcome back into Drive Time. Tim Leonard with you until 6 p.m. Great to have you along on a Monday. Talking a lot of Orange football coaching news. Syracuse went out and got their new defensive coordinator. Boy, that track record is something for Vince Karras. Not good enough to get Paulie excited, but I'm excited. That was a pretty darn good hire, it seems like, for Syracuse football. Better than I would have guessed. I wasn't exactly sure who they would add at the defensive coordinator position, but there's a lot of reasons to be excited about what Vince Karras is bringing from Toledo and his track record. Former head coach, very successful one at Mount Union, a Division III school, but a Division III power that has breeded a lot of great coaches. So excited to see what Syracuse's defense looks like, how different their 4-2-5 is next year compared to what it was the past 2 years with Elijah Robinson. We also found out this morning Nick Williams, the edge coach, is on his way to Florida State. So he is moving to a different school in the conference after 2 years with Fran Brown here and working in the SEC and then working for Colorado and establishing himself as a very good recruiter and someone that everyone on the team really liked. So I think that is a tough loss, but I am very excited to see who Vince Karras brings in along with Fran Brown. Is Karras going to be the linebackers coach? I mean, right now, it seems like Syracuse has a couple different openings. They have a special teams opening, which will be an interesting hire. That'll be the third time in 3 years that Fran Brown uses a different coach at special teams. Or they could go no special teams. Remember when Dino Babers did that? Let's not do that again. I'm sure they will hire someone at special teams. Defensive backs is still up for grabs. Linebackers is up for grabs. And then you've got the defensive line openings. Right now, Elijah Robinson, we thought he was going to LSU. Reports coming out within the last couple hours from footballscoop.com that is still not a done deal yet, after they were the ones, I believe, that said it was a done deal. Looks like it's more up for grabs than we thought. And then you got Nick Williams' position to fill as well. As for the offensive line coach that the Orange added, if anyone missed that news, that was Juan Castillo. Pete Thamel was the first to report that. Castillo is a 66-year-old NFL veteran with a capital V. I mean, he has been an offensive line coach or an offensive assistant for a long time for several NFL franchises and at the college level for a little bit. Most recently, he was the offensive analyst for Michigan this past year. Before that, he was UCLA's offensive line coach in 2024. So that was 2 seasons ago. Before that, his NFL run concluded with the Washington Commanders, where he was the tight end coach and run game specialist for the Commanders for 2 seasons, Chicago Bears offensive line coach in 2020 and 2021. He also started his career as the offensive line coach for Donovan McNabb and even predated Donovan McNabb. He was the offensive line coach for the Eagles from 1998 to 2010. That's a long time to be an O-line coach for one NFL franchise. Then they bumped him up to defensive coordinator for just 1 season. Maybe it was 2 seasons. That was a questionable hire at the time because he had limited defensive background and was the O-line coach for so many years. That didn't go great for the Eagles. So he was the Eagles DC last in 2012, and that was the end of his time in Philly. Then he became the Ravens O-line coach and the Bills O-line coach down the road, 2017-2018 seasons. He was with the Bills. So now he is back in the central New York area and a little bit east of where he was, and has gone from Michigan offensive analyst to Syracuse offensive line coach. Fran Brown, remember in his final press conference after a game this year, so against Boston College, said that offensive line is a huge position going forward. And he said that he really wants his team to be known as a team that has big people that beats up on little people, and they feel they have those pieces, but they need to get the right guys in place, I think, to develop the talent that they are bringing in. And I think we're starting to see that maybe there's been a little bit of a shift from we want ace recruiters to we want guys that have been around the block and can develop talent. And Fran Brown is an ace recruiter, and Fran Brown is going to bring in talent. I think we're all very confident in that fact. And he's done it so far, and he's done it with the top 30 recruiting class in the country coming off a 3-9 season. There's not many recruiters in the country that can do that. And there's not many recruiters in the country that can bring a 5-star wide receiver to Syracuse. So I think we know he's going to bring in talent. I think it seems like the staff around him now is a little bit better equipped from what we know, and there's still a lot of positions to fill, but this staff around him might be better equipped to develop the talent. Back to your thoughts on the phone lines where we've got Dave in Syracuse who is next up. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Tim. Wouldn't it be something if Elijah Robinson did just go to Louisiana to check out the ladies?
Yeah. I don't think he did that, but it is interesting that it's not a done deal yet. I appreciate your humor, though, Dave.
Yeah. So I would have to think that the new D coordinator, Vince, would like to drag as many of his guys with him that he had at Toledo. Seems to be a staff that really had it working and very comfortable with each other and done a great job. But I would really like to know, and I'm sure Fran's checking this out, what kind of Northeast recruiting ties these guys have. It certainly seems like Fran initially hired coaches for their recruiting prowess initially, and not necessarily their experience so much. And this time he went with X's and O's, which I'm very happy about, because the player development situation really wasn't working out with the last staff. But having said that, really hoping that this works out. I'm very enthusiastic about it. It is a wait-and-see kind of thing, but this guy really seems to have it going on. It seems like the player development end of it, and Toledo players have really done a good job. And I'm sure that he's going to look to try and poach a few of his players that still have eligibility, that were really good players, come to Syracuse too. So I'm keeping my eyes open for that over the next month.
Yeah, good thoughts, Dave. We appreciate you checking in. That's Dave in Syracuse. And one name we do know that was one of the top assistants on the defensive staff for Toledo, that is Ross Watson. He's going to Iowa State. Iowa State has made the new hire of Jimmy Rogers after losing Matt Campbell. So the coaching carousel continues there, and Ross Watson is rejoining Rogers, seemingly a friend and a former coworker of his at Iowa State, versus coming to Syracuse or staying at Toledo. That's a name that I think came to the forefront for a lot of Orange fans because Toledo has had a very good track record under Jason Candle and under Vince Karras of recruiting and developing defensive backs and getting defensive backs to fit that 4-2-5 hybrid scheme that Vince Karras runs. So Ross Watson is not going to be one of those names that's coming, and it would have been a nice fit because the Orange are in search of a defensive backs coach, and that seemed like one of their top defensive assistants. He is going to Iowa State, but I'm sure Vince Karras will bring in maybe a couple guys from the Toledo staff. Maybe it's just one. Maybe he has other ties elsewhere, and we talked about Mount Union is a big coaching tree, and I'm sure Fran Brown is already got his gears spinning on who could be filling those other positions, and that news will be coming out, I'm sure, on some of these other positions they're trying to fill. On the narrative that we're kind of talking about, and I just said it and then Dave said it again, that it feels like Fran Brown went from looking for recruiters to looking for more X's and O's guys. I would say to that, let's let it play out a little bit. Let's see how many other assistant coaches that come in fit that profile. I also think maybe we're a little bit searching for what is the narrative. I think he's just looking for good coaches, and I think he's looking to probably improve in the developmental side of things, and that's what I was saying earlier. But it's not as if Dale Williams is a complete deviation from Juan Castillo as an offensive line coach, or it's not like Elijah Robinson was thought of as just a recruiter, and this guy, Vince Karras, is thought of as just an X's and O's guy. But it does feel like Elijah Robinson was known for recruiting, and Vince Karras was known more for this scheme, and he's been turning heads around college football for some of the different unique stuff he is doing in this 4-2-5 style of defense. What I know of this style of defense and how it deviates maybe a little bit from what the Orange have been doing in the past couple seasons in a 4-2-5 scheme. So the difference here is it's a very heavy quarters and cover 3 defense from his time at Toledo. That's what the stats would say, that quarters defense, so you've got 4 cornerbacks lined up and they're covering a quarter of the field. That, or 4 defensive backs, I should say, lined up. That was used way more at Toledo in the last 6 seasons than most other schools. Now, it's not a very heavy blitzing style of defense. And we talked about how Syracuse made some adjustments this year in terms of how much they blitzed year 1 under Elijah Robinson to how much they were blitzing in year 2. And when Fran Brown grabbed a hold more of the play calling and what the defensive game plan was and wanted to impart a new identity on the defense during the bye week, middle of the season, and we found out that he made some changes second half of SMU and was kind of rolling with that through the end of the season, he was blitzing quite a bit. Now, the Orange defense was blitzing quite a bit, I should say, at least statistically. With a 4-2-5 scheme, you don't necessarily blitz a lot from your linebackers typically. It's more blitzing from the secondary, and we saw more of that. We saw Devin Grant blitzing more towards the end of the year. So I think Fran was experimenting a little bit, and I think what we're going to see is this is a very sound scheme to fit the typical offense that is out there right now, the RPO-heavy offense, which is air raid, West Coast style of offense, spread it out formation. And one thing that just reading through some of the articles of coaches that talk about Toledo's 4-2-5 hybrid scheme and what is different about Toledo's in the past 6 years under Vince Karras, who is now coming to Syracuse compared to other 4-2-5s, is they're not blitzing quite as much. And he's set up a lot of times for 5 guys to line up and basically align at a certain level of the defense, about midway back where a linebacker would typically line up. There's 5 players that are lined up in a row, basically defensive backs and sometimes linebackers. So it is a 4-2-5, but it's got a little bit of a different look to it. And the reports are that this is a defense that has really worked, and people really feel that this is going to translate to a higher conference level. And that's why Nebraska wanted him, And I'm sure that's part of the reason why Fran Brown wanted him, and Syracuse went out and got him. 315-437-7644. If you'd like to chime in, we'll hit a break here. We can get some more of your thoughts on the phone lines as we continue on Drive Time for ESPN 44. If you'd like to call in on ESPN Radio and KeySportsTalk.com.
This is our...
My research staff is me, myself, and I. Tommy Cap. Yeah, nothing really to say about those guys that hit the portal so far. Hey, you heading out? When you want to wave bye to the chat?
No, I just came back. I got a lot of work to do.
Oh, really? Where'd you go?
Dan's dad's wake.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
I didn't know about that. Sorry.
No worries. How's everybody doing?
They were talking about you. Nick called in and was like taking a jab at your track record comment.
What track record?
You know.
The more I think about that, I literally praised the hire when it started. That's the clip you guys put out. We're playing with the big boys. We're beating Nebraska for a coach.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of winning the offseason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's all we have to talk about right now. It's the off season, so
I'm sick of
you got to go and win it.
I would like to be talking about bowl preparation.
Well, we're not.
I don't think it's a scalding hot take to say who cares. They hired a coach. Yay.
Yeah, but you were kind of just like, well, we don't know. We can't even comment on it. I mean, of course you can comment on
I didn't
it.
say you couldn't comment on it.
Yeah, you kind of said. You were like, we don't know anything.
We
like,
don't know if it's going to work. We don't. We never know.
I mean, you can say that it seems like it's going to work. You can say that.
Didn't we thought it would work with
Well,
Elijah Robinson?
I was just saying, I think there is some revisionist history on that. I mean, I brought up that when Elijah Robinson was hired, the message boards and Twitter went crazy, I'm sure. And we were all like, wow, Fran means business if he's bringing in this guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Nothing is guaranteed in this world. Nothing's guaranteed in this world. No. Death. I'm dressed up for death.
What's his name?
That's a good joke. What's his name? I get it. I get the connotation you're saying there. I have a date and it's a man. I get it. Oh, that got me. God, I gotta go home and cry myself to sleep now.
Yeah, Uche Azoje. She is maybe rookie of the year right now, I would think, in the conference. She's incredible. Yeah, Gio is leaving us, sadly. He's going to Texas A&M, College Station. Maybe he's going down there just to look at the ladies. Who knows? One of Elijah Robinson's former stops. I just think that's revisionist history, Philly. I think we were all just praising him. I mean, as we should have. I think it is still a great staff for Syracuse, and he just made changes because this year didn't go well. He's just the type of coach that will always make changes. I find it hard to find, like, if you can find someone that was basically like, oh, I don't know about this staff from Fran, then point it out to me. I just don't think that we ever really do that. And this was an especially good staff that Fran assembled when he took the job compared to other Syracuse staffs. Women's team ceiling, I mean, Coach Jack said the other day she thinks their Final Four are good. I would be surprised by that. But I think about what they were 2 years ago would be their ceiling. I don't know if they'll get quite there, but that was a team that was top 3 in the ACC and, challenged UConn in the second round, 6th seed in the tournament. They've got a pretty high ceiling.
Syracuse.
We roll along with Drive Time, taking your phone calls as we continue to react to the Orange football coaching news from the weekend. Syracuse has got their new defensive coordinator, Vince Karras, is coming over from Toledo. 6 successful seasons there. Toledo was ranked top 10 in pretty much every defensive statistic this past season, running a 4-2-5 scheme. They were 4th in scoring defense, held opponents to 12 points per game, 12.2 points per game, 3rd in total defense, 8th in passing yards allowed, 8th in rushing D, 3rd in red zone D, and 11th in sacks per game, 2.92 sacks per game. That would be nice to see the Orange be able to get after the quarterback and sack the quarterback a little bit more. We'll see if that trend improves, if we see a great deal of an improvement in this 4-2-5 scheme compared to what it was before. But it does feel like this is a very solid hire for Syracuse and their most important hire of the offseason by going out and plucking Vince Karras from Toledo, who was wanted by another ACC school, according to reports. And our guy Stephen Fonte was saying that Nebraska did offer him. He turned down the offer from Nebraska and Matt Rule to be their defensive coordinator after visiting Lincoln, according to reports that he did visit there and interview on campus. And then he also turned down the Toledo head coaching job after Jason Candle moved on to UConn. So he was very wanted, and Fran Brown was on him early, and Fran Brown convinced him to come. And that is a big hire for Syracuse football right now. It seems like at the defensive coordinator position, which is certainly an area they need to improve on as they head into year 3 under Fran Brown. Back to your thoughts on the phone lines. If you'd like to chime in, you can do so at 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN44 to call in on the program this afternoon. We've got Rob, who is in Connecticut. Hey, Rob.
Hey, TL. How's it going?
It's going well. Even better when you call me TL, Rob. We know that's the new thing.
Well, first of all, that's here to stay because I'm the guarantor of that. So I can tell you right now, as I make the cross sign, it's here to stay.
All right.
Anyway, real quick, do you think any of our guys are going to be drafted in the first 7 rounds? Obviously, you only have 7 rounds. And how many wins do you think it's going to take for us, conference wins in basketball to, go to the tournament?
2 good questions. Thanks for checking in. That's Rob in Connecticut. First question, in the NFL draft this year, after remember the Orange had 4 guys selected in the NFL draft last year, my guess is probably no one will get taken. Jack Stonehouse, I would think, is a fairly good bet to at least be in the conversation. I think he's definitely going to be on an NFL roster next year. I think he's one of the top punters in the country, and I saw he was named AP All-ACC first-team punter this year. So I think Jack Stonehouse is your best bet of a guy to see on Sundays next year. Will he get drafted? I'm not exactly sure, but he's probably in the conversation to be one of the punters that is drafted this year. It's a shame. I feel like Devin Grant has a pretty good shot of playing at the next level. And if the season had gone differently for Devin Grant, who is someone that I think it was underrated how much he was playing through injury this year. And remember, he tweaked his ankle. We think he sprained his ankle. I think it was said at one point publicly it was a sprained ankle in the Tennessee game, week 1. He sat out a couple games. He came back, and he had sort of some stretches where you could tell the ankle was bothering him more than other games, and he really just wasn't out there as much as he normally would have been. And same goes for Deuce Chestnut. Those are 2 guys that I think have NFL upside, NFL potential, and it's just a shame that the season didn't go the way that they wanted because of injuries, and because of those maybe underrated injuries, Syracuse's team overall is not trending as up and they probably won't get as much respect. But it is good to see that Syracuse football is legitimately a brand right now in the NFL. That Elijah Clark play that went viral is one example, but I even saw this weekend Zaire Franklin and LaQuinn Allen are swapping jerseys after the Colts play the Jags, and Sean Tucker has been turning heads, and Riley Dixon's still doing his thing, but it's a lot of these newer guys from the Fran Brown era, and Marlo Wax and Aronde Gadsden's had a nice rookie season, so it is great to see some of these players making a name for themselves, and that all matters, and that all factors into Syracuse improving their profile as a team that high school kids want to go play for. And by the way, Vince Karras has a pretty good track record of turning defensive players into NFL players for a MAC defensive coordinator. For someone coming from Toledo, Toledo has had plenty of NFL caliber of guys, whether undrafted free agents or draft picks. So that is encouraging to see. And I think Fran understands that a big goal for a lot of high school kids is how do I get to the league? And he's leaning into that a good deal with the types of coaches that he's trying to bring in. As for the second question, how many wins does Orange basketball need to make the NCAA tournament? Right now, Syracuse is projected 8-team wins at last look on Bart Torvik and Ken Pom. That would definitely not be enough. They need to probably win somewhere in the neighborhood of 21 or 22 games in the regular season at least to be in that conversation. The ACC is much improved from last year, and I think the ACC is probably going to take 7 teams to the NCAA tournament. I look at the ACC's profile right now, and I went down the list the other day just scrolling through KenPom, and I clicked on every team and what they've done in the non-con, and there's a lot of teams that at least have a decent enough resume that if they play well in conference play, they will be on the bubble. There's maybe 12 teams that could be in that at-large conversation, and that includes Cal and Stanford. We don't talk about them a ton. That includes SMU, who I think is pretty good. NC State's had sort of a disappointing start compared to preseason expectations, but they're still in the pretty good category, I would say. There's a lot of teams in the pretty good category. I think Syracuse is one of those teams. And there's maybe 12 teams in the ACC that are at least pretty good. I don't know how many teams there are that are definitely like top 25. I mean, Duke and Louisville. And then UNC, I would say, is number 3 right now in the ACC men's basketball pecking order. I think Virginia has had a nice start, so you got to put them in the conversation. Clemson is always underrated, in my opinion. I think Clemson will be there throughout the season, viewed as an NCAA tournament team, or at worst, a team that is hovering around the bubble. Miami has improved, and Coach Autry shouted out how much improved they have been to this point in the season. So it's a much better league, which is good for Syracuse. Still, you probably got to win 21 or 22 games total, and you've got to have a winning record in conference play, at least, I would say, to be viewed as an NCAA tournament team, or at least a fringe NCAA tournament team, a team on the bubble going into the ACC tournament and beyond. Most years you're looking at, though, 22, 23 wins puts you in the bubble conversation. And there's been years where an ACC team has won 23, 24, and they still haven't made it. I don't think it's going to be one of those years. I think if you're in the 21 to 23 range, you're probably a bubble team. And if you're 24 or more, you're looking at likely being a 10 seed or better, and someone who is viewed on the inside of the bubble by a little bit, maybe in that 8-9 game. So that's what's on the line for Syracuse. But KenPom runs all the numbers, and despite an easy start to the schedule, and despite Syracuse being favored in 10 of their next 11 games, they're at a point right now where they would have to outdo the expectations and the predictive metrics and the simulations by probably 3 to 4 wins to be viewed as an NCAA tournament team. I think they will do that. I think they will be at least on the bubble come March, and I think the schedule sets up well for them where they will bank some wins at the start of conference play, and then they will get some opportunities to add some quad 1 wins as well. We'll hit our final timeout here on Drive Time. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the college football playoff, what to make of how the committee handled the situation, and also give some shout-outs to end the show. That is all ahead on Drive Time. You're listening to it on ESPN Radio or watching it on QSportsTalk.com.
Check out my...
Oh, Torvik's updated then. Let's see. That's good. Last I looked, KenPom was like 18 wins, 19 wins. Torvik has them... I'm seeing 18 and 13, 9-9 is their projected record. Are you saying like when you count up all the games? Because they don't go strictly by that. They go by like percentage of chance of winning each game, essentially. Yeah, Pitt, not off to a good start for the league. They're not one of the 12 teams, I would say, that's in the pretty good category. I would imagine they update it, though, right? I mean, let's see. I'll go through right now and see how many I get to. So they are at 5 wins, St. Joe's 6, Hofstra 7, Mercyhurst 8, Northeastern 9, Stonehill 10. Clemson slight favorites on Torvik, that's 11. Georgia Tech 12, Pittsburgh 13, Florida State 14, BC 15, Virginia Tech 16, Miami 17. So Torvik has them winning the next 12 games to get to 17-3. And then losing to NC State, beating Notre Dame, that's 18. Losing 2 more, beating Cal, that's 19. Beating SMU, that's 20. So he has them winning 20 games. 21. 21 with Pitt at the end. With a 4-game losing streak before that Pitt game. So 21 wins, as you said. Flurries in NC, oh my God. Everyone go flee and get some bread. I always laugh at that one photo, Dom, I'm sure you've seen in Raleigh that went viral probably 10 years ago now, where the highway is like 10 cars are parked and there's a fire in the background and people are out of their cars walking and there's like an inch of snow on the ground. Yeah, Chris Bell's had a good year. Now he's getting like some NBA draft love. I mean, I don't really understand why he wasn't better for Syracuse. That's kind of in the annoying category. Hours watch, 687. That's your Q Sports Talk Wrapped. Yeah, I'm sure he's looking to become a head coach, Philly. Karras. I've been neglecting the YouTube chat. Let's see. Have I missed anything? Sophie Burrows did have a game yesterday, Tim. That was good to see. Nick Williams is going to Florida State. Yeah, Sophie 4 for 35 from 3 on the year going into the game. 5 for 10 yesterday. But she's been good outside of missing shots. So if she can hit shots, the team will be much better. Oh, no. Donuts into the one car. I don't think Paulie ever said it was a bad hire. He just like refused to comment on the hire for a little bit, which he's now saying that's not what he was doing. But he literally was like, I don't know. We don't know. It's like kind of your job to make an opinion on it, Paulie. I hope he's listening. Yeah, I felt bad for Steve during that one. Paulie does make good radio by being annoying sometimes. Track record doesn't matter, yeah. I wonder why he hired any of us. Did he look at our track record at all? Final segment on Drive Time this evening. If you call right now, we can work in at 315-437-7644. Tim Leonard back inside our studios. Orange basketball back in action Thursday. Orange women's basketball in action Wednesday. That'll be a 7 p.m. tip against Colgate inside the Dome. That'll be ugly Christmas sweater game. So we're all looking forward to that, of course. This has been a really exciting Orange women's basketball team to watch to this point, and they are ahead of the men's team in terms of net rankings and chances of making the NCAA tournament. They are 42 in the NCAA's net rankings right now, 9th best mark out of the ACC, and they got a win in the ACC opener yesterday down in Dallas against SMU and pretty much thumped SMU. They only ended up winning the game by 9 points, but they dominated that one from start to finish. So before we get out of here today, let's give out some shout-outs. Wanted to shout out the Orange women's basketball team. Also, specifically, Uche Azoje, the Orange's very talented, very athletic, very promising starting center. 6'3" center who is a freshman who played professionally in Japan for 2 seasons. She was named the ACC Rookie of the Week for the second straight week. She had 5 block shots in the first quarter of the game yesterday against SMU. Can't recall ever seeing an Orange women's basketball player have 5 blocks in a quarter. She ended up with 8 blocks in the game. She had 7 blocks against Howard when she went for 20 points, 9 rebounds, 7 blocks. Then she played Auburn in the Wednesday game last week, ACC-SEC Challenge. Uche Azoje had 16 points, 13 rebounds, 5 block shots in that game. And she is still leading the ACC in blocks per game right now after a career-high 8 block shots against SMU. So, got to give a shout-out to Uche Azoje for being named the ACC Rookie of the Week in back-to-back weeks. Shout-out to Antoine Delorier. He was named a freshman All-American, according to On3. So back-to-back years of the Orange getting some freshman All-American love. Murad Watson was that guy last year. He transferred out. Antoine Delorier has said that he is coming back. At least that's his plan right now. And he is someone that we're all very excited about. Shout out to the Bills. They had a nice comeback win. They'll have a huge game against the Patriots on Sunday. The Pats are off a bye week, so that'll be fascinating. And then shout out to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee in a negative way. We just have to talk about this, and I'm not shouting them out for their performance. I don't necessarily have a firm stance on what are the teams that should have gotten in and what is the team that should have been left out. I think it was a very, very challenging year for the selection committee, and I don't envy what they had to go through and the different precedents that they were juggling in terms of, do you kick out Alabama, which is an ugly precedent to set, that the conference championship game puts you at risk of maybe falling out of the playoff, and I don't think they should set that precedent. Because the way I look at the Alabama situation is Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma are all ranked ahead of Alabama in the SEC. And if any one of those teams played Georgia in that game, I think it's a decent shot that all 3 of those teams may have had sort of a similar result going up against Georgia in that game. And it's not really fair that Alabama would get kicked out and Ole Miss would be sitting in the 6th seed. The 6th seed versus 7th seed is way too big of a gap, though, because the 6th seed Ole Miss now plays Tulane in the first round, who they already beat by 5 touchdowns. And the 7th seed Texas A&M is drawing Miami, who is the last team in. I think the biggest issue right now in the college football playoff, this was a very tough year for 2 group of 5 teams to be out of the 12-team field. There are a lot of really good teams. I think Notre Dame is national championship good, and I think we saw that against Syracuse. Notre Dame is in the conversation along with Texas, along with Vandy, of teams that I think could have gone into the playoff and definitely won their first game and maybe even won multiple games this year. The way that Notre Dame was playing of late, the way that Texas was playing of late, the way that Vandy has been playing. Now, I'm not advocating for those teams to be in necessarily the way it's constructed, but it is just a huge issue in my mind that Tulane is in and they're going to lose by 20 points, and James Madison is in and they're going to lose by 20 points. Maybe there should be space for one of those, but it's a shame that Notre Dame is not in this playoff, and it's a shame that BYU and Texas and Vandy aren't in the playoff, and we have to watch Tulane play Ole Miss again and probably get their doors blown off again, and we got to watch Oregon play JMU and probably blow the doors off JMU. No one really wants to watch that. I understand that you have to allow for a group of 5 champion to be in there, but it really stinks that there are 2 group of 5 teams this year, and that's the one thing that I think the committee should be focused on fixing. The committee's decision to put in Miami was maybe the right one because they were close and they go to the head-to-head. The process of how they got to that decision made literally no sense to me. The process of having Miami behind Notre Dame every week, and even though both teams sat out this past week, they still were able to jump them, doesn't really make sense. The process of moving BYU down a spot for their conference championship loss so you could conveniently have Miami and Notre Dame next to each other so then you could apply the head-to-head, but not moving down Alabama because that would have not made the head-to-head possible, was definitely fishy. The process of having Alabama ahead of Notre Dame for the first time last week and the week leading into the conference championship games was also kind of fishy. So I think they understood that there was going to be a lot of backlash, and I think they made a change in their thinking, which was bad process. In the last minute, it seems they made this change, and maybe it was influenced by the fact that Virginia did not win and the ACC would have been completely shut out, which is bad process if you're waiting for the results of that game. The actual field, it was just a really tough year to decide, and I think the biggest takeaway is they need to figure out how to get the best 12 teams in there a little bit more than what we saw this year. We've got 10 very good teams, and we've got 2 teams that are in the group of 5 that are going to get some love, and it's cool to see them out there, and I think there should be space for a group of 5 team, but I don't think 2 of 12 teams should be from the group of 5, and a lot of that falls on the ACC. The ACC made their bed there with the tiebreaker scenario they have, and the ACC did not show out this year, obviously, and I'm happy that Miami at least got a look from an ACC perspective. That'll wrap things up on Drive Time. We'll be back 5 to 6 p.m. tomorrow on the program. Orange Nation 12 to 2 tomorrow as well. Until then, enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio. Thanks for watching us on QSportsTalk.com.
This is Orange.